Hello and welcome to News 9. I'm Verghese Abraham. First up, of course, the big question that everybody is asking is the AQI levels or the air quality index levels in the Delhi NCR region. Delhi air quality continues to remain in the severe category as per the Central Pollution Control Board. The city's overall air quality index was recorded at around 418 and this was at 6 a.m. today. This is according to the data that was given by the Central Pollution Control Board. Several air monitoring stations including Anand Vihar, Dwarka, Shadipur, Mandir Marg, ITU, RK Puram, Punjabi Bhag, North Campus, Mathura Road, Rohini, Okla, India Gate all had AQI levels of above 400. Meanwhile, in the National Capital Region, Greater Noida was the most polluted with an AQI of 474. Physical classes up to Class 9 will remain suspended in Noida till November 10th on account of the poor air quality in the National Capital Region. The Graded Response Action Plan Stage 4 has already been implemented in Delhi NCR with the air quality index recorded at 394 on Tuesday morning, remaining in the very poor category. Meanwhile, the Delhi government will consider the Supreme Court's directives while taking decision on the odd-even car rationing scheme. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court has directed the Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh and Delhi government to stop crop burning forthwith. It made the local SHO responsible for implementing the directions under the supervision of DGP and the Chief Secretary. The court ordered for holding of a meeting of all stakeholders on Wednesday as it fixed considering taking up the matter on Friday. Meanwhile, let's in fact take a look at how 10 measures have to be done to improve Delhi's air quality. The first is about hotels and restaurants stop using coal. Approximately 9,000 hotels and restaurants in Delhi use coal, mostly in tandoors. They are a major source of particulate matter emission. Meanwhile, the use of LPG, avoid polluting fuels, avoid using wood, crop residue, cow dung and coal for cooking. Instead, everyone should get access to LPG. Meanwhile, there's also the big demand to stop municipal solid waste burning of everyday items we use and throw like bottles, newspaper and food scraps severely pollutes the air. Meanwhile, construction materials to be covered, covering of construction area and raw materials, use of water sprays and windbreakers, store waste inside premises and cover construction materials during on-road movement. Preventive steps also to be carried on when it comes to concrete batching, using water sprays, windbreakers and telescopic chutes to spots where concrete patching is done. Another important factor is, of course, the use of electric BS6 vehicles. Use of these electric hybrid and BS6 vehicles could, in fact, improve when it comes to the use of public transport as well. Improvement of public transport facilities also being asked. Meanwhile, another aspect is the desoxing or denoxing systems at power plants. Installing of desoxing as well as denoxing, that is sulfur and nitrogen based gases systems in large power plants and refineries in Delhi which emit pollutants like SO2 and NO2. Meanwhile, there is also the system of installing vapor recovery systems at petrol pumps. Petrol vapors contribute to the formation of smog. Vapor recovery systems help to collect volatile organic compounds. And then, of course, the stopping of biomass burning of crop residue needs to stop. Used for energy production, biogas generation and feeding cattle. This is the other alternative solution that can be given by trying to say that crop burning should be taken into consideration. Meanwhile, tackling fly ash. To deal with the pollutants, one in fact should use water spraying, installation of windbreakers and plantations. This is based on the IIT Kanpur study that was carried out, and they have in fact given out these 10 measures to improve Delhi's air quality. At least 9 persons, including 2 Manipur police personnel and a woman, sustained bullet injuries after unidentified men fired at them at Kangchup foothills in Kangkopki district adjoining Imphal West district. Alarmed over the presence of 5 unknown persons from a different community who had strayed into Methi area, a large group of people, including women, from Fayang went to Kangchup hillside to find about them. Now it is being said that as they reached the place, suspected militants from the hills started firing at them. Later, village volunteers and security forces rushed to the spot, leading to heavy exchange of fire. So far, 7 persons have been admitted to RIMS, while 2 have been admitted to Raj Medcity in Imphal. Meanwhile, 4 persons who had strayed into the Methi area are missing, while 1 has been found by security forces in a critically injured condition. Security personnel are conducting operations to trace the 4 missing persons. In another firing incident, armed men attacked the Kortuk, Imphal West district. Meanwhile, tension continues to grip Imphal Valley after 2 teenagers were missing on Sunday afternoon from the Sekmai area near Kampokpi district. Police have recovered the phones of the missing teens wrapped in black polythene packet from an oil pump in Senapati district. Meanwhile, the Allahabad High Court has scheduled a hearing for November 8th to address a group of petitions filed by the Anjuman Intizamiya Masjid Committee and others. These petitions challenge the validity of lawsuit that seeks to restore a temple at that location where the Gyanvapi Mosque currently stands. In these petitions, the individuals filing them are also questioning a directive from the Varanasi court. This directive ordered the Archaeological Survey of India to conduct a thorough survey of the mosque grounds situated adjacent to the Kashi Vishwanath temple. Well, it has been a month since Hamas initiated a deadly war against southern Israel, resulting in the deaths of about 1,400 people and the abduction of over 2,220 Israeli individuals as hostages. Since then, Israel has been conducting airstrikes and ground operations in Gaza. Let's take you through the latest updates on day 33. Well, Israeli strikes Hamas tunnels. The tunnel system of the Hamas is one crucial aspect that the Israeli forces have been trying to nullify completely. Neither Hamas nor Israel could control Gaza, is what the Israeli defense minister is saying when questions were raised about what would be the administration of Gaza once the operations reach its logical end. Netanyahu, meanwhile, stays firm on hostage release for the ceasefire, and at least 10,328 Palestinians in Gaza have been killed. Around 70% of Gazans have fled their homes from the war that has broken out, and day 33, in fact, gives you more grim statistics of what is coming in from the war zone.
The following content may contain visuals that are disturbing, graphic, or sensitive in nature. Viewer discretion is advised. This material is intended for mature audiences and may not be suitable for all viewers. Please exercise caution while watching, and if you find such content distressing, we recommend discontinuing viewing. This disclaimer is provided to ensure awareness and to prioritize viewer well-being.
Well, Israeli Defense Minister Gallant confirmed that Israeli forces are operating deep within Gaza City, which is Hamas's stronghold. He emphasized that Israel has no intention of ruling Gaza after the war, nor does Hamas. Gallant also warned Hezbollah's leader Hassan Nasrallah against attacking Israel, stating it would be a mistake. He also went on to say that regarding Gaza's future governance, he stated that neither Hamas nor Israel would govern, leaving other possibilities open. Israel continues to urge Palestinian civilians to move to the south of Gaza for their safety, while there are several Palestinian civilians who still remain in the north of Gaza. Extensive operations have been carried out, combined with airstrikes and ground incursions, and precision bombs have also been placed in these areas as well. The big warning coming in, also asking any people who are in the north of Gaza to in fact move it. And also the big story that is coming in right now is that Israel is conducting operation deep within Gaza City. And the Gaza City is the stronghold of the Hamas, and the defense minister of Israel has emphasized that Israel has no intention of ruling Gaza after the war. So after this, it looks like there is a post-war plan as well that Israel would soon execute that does not allow for Israeli occupation of Gaza area. These visuals are in fact part of the operations that are being carried out in Gaza, which has been deferred, and the earlier attacks that were carried out on certain areas in the Gaza region. Israeli forces have moved into the Gaza city area. The forces have been given instructions to round up Hamas leadership and to destroy Hamas in Gaza. Meanwhile, satellite images from Maxa Technologies reveal 8 trucks lining up at Egypt's Rafah border crossing with Gaza, where severe shortages of food, medicine and fuel persist. Evacuations were halted after an Israeli strike on an ambulance. Egypt is urging increased aid and fuel flow and ensuring ambulance security. Images also capture people walking south from Gaza City along the Saladin Road and fires burning in the vicinity, indicating the ongoing crisis. Maxa's satellite images have in fact revealed the kind of humanitarian catastrophe that is also there when it comes to the situation in Gaza, but also revealed the effectiveness of the Israeli operations in Gaza as well. Several areas in Gaza have been reduced to rubble, and of course the 8 trucks lining up at the Rafah crossing is another set of pictures that the satellites have been able to pick up. Israel has in fact decided to give only small humanitarian pauses to allow aid in, and that too which is tightly controlled and only to be distributed by the Red Crescent Society. Meanwhile, flares lit up Gaza's night sky on November 7th and 8th as Israel launched a major operation in Gaza City targeting Hamas. The conflict began when Hamas fighters breached Gaza's fence, resulting in casualties and abductions. Israel has since relentlessly bombarded the area, leading to a significant loss of life, including many civilians and children. The situation remains tense in the region. Well, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday seemed willing to consider pauses in fighting in the Gaza Strip, either for aid or the exit of hostages, but again ruled out a ceasefire for now despite international pressure. Take a look at this report.
Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday seemed willing to consider pauses in fighting in the Gaza Strip, either for aid or the exit of hostages, but again ruled out a ceasefire for now, despite international pressure. Netanyahu was speaking with ABC News.
I know the Biden administration has also said now is not the time for a ceasefire. What they're proposing is a humanitarian pause. There will be no pause?
Well, there will be no ceasefire, general ceasefire in Gaza without the release of our hostages. As far as tactical little pauses, an hour here, an hour there, we've had them before. I suppose we'll check the circumstances in order to enable goods, humanitarian goods to come in, or our hostages, individual hostages to leave. But I don't think there's going to be a general ceasefire. It's not that I don't think. I think it will hamper the war effort. It'll hamper our effort to get our hostages out, because the only thing that works on these criminals in Hamas is the military pressure that we're exerting.
Blasts and flares lit up the sky over Gaza early Tuesday morning. It's now been more than 1 month since the Hamas raid on southern Israel, when militants killed 1,400 people and seized 240 hostages. Israel has bombarded the area since then. Gaza health officials say it has killed more than 10,000 Palestinians, including some 4,100 children. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned on Monday that Gaza is becoming a, quote, graveyard for children, calling for an urgent ceasefire. However, both sides have resisted international pressure to do so. Israel says hostages should be released first, while Hamas says it will not free them or stop fighting while Gaza is under assault. On Monday, the White House said U.S. President Joe Biden had discussed, quote, pauses and possible hostage releases in a phone call with Netanyahu, reiterating his support for Israel while emphasizing that it must protect civilians. Like Israel, the U.S. fears Hamas would take advantage of a full ceasefire to regroup. On Monday, Netanyahu was also asked about what happens when the conflict is over.
President Biden has said that it would be a mistake for Israel to occupy Gaza. Who should govern Gaza when this is over?
Those who don't want to continue the way of Hamas. It certainly is not. I think Israel will, for an indefinite period, will have the overall security responsibility, because we've seen what happens when we don't have it. When we don't have that security responsibility, what we have is the eruption of Hamas terror on a scale that we couldn't imagine.
International organizations have said hospitals like this one in Gaza City cannot cope with the wounded, and that food and clean water are running out, with aid deliveries nowhere near enough.
Amid the ongoing war between Israel and the Hamas, what we understand is that more Americans are set to leave Gaza, as confirmed by White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby. He emphasized that the United States opposes any Israeli military reoccupation of Gaza's post-conflict. Kirby also underlined that despite differences, Israel and the United States remain friends in this particular aspect. Meanwhile, even as violence continues in the Gazan enclave with other 10,000 Palestinians who are killed now, the West Bank is also witnessing a similar situation. Incidents of violence are on the rise, and at least 155 Palestinians have been killed in West Bank ever since the Hamas attacked Israel on October 2nd. Even though the death toll in West Bank is just a fraction of the number of deaths in Gaza, the territory is getting closer to the tipping point with every passing minute. These incidents of violence are being blamed upon the Jewish settlers who are living in the West Bank, and is being seen as a direct reaction to the atrocities committed by the Hamas and Israelis. Settler groups have become bolder even as the Israeli army has intensified its raids on Palestinian towns and cities. The war in Gaza seems to have aroused some of the more violent groups of settlers in the West Bank. While some are out taking revenge for Hamas atrocities, others seem to be simply taking advantage of the situation to lash out at the Palestinian settlers. US President Joe Biden has repeatedly urged Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to rein in the settlers, but all the appeals seem to be in vain till now. Itamar Ben-Gvir, the national security minister in Netanyahu's cabinet, has already said that he handed out rifles to Israelis to protect settlements and the cities. What's more is that while these violent settlers were once labeled as rogue operators, they have now gotten representation in Israel's coalition government. Palestinian officials have expressed concern at the situation and even said that a third intifada is likely to break out soon. The Palestinian Authority officials, however, are strongly against the prospect of another intifada. They fear that it would give Hamas an opportunity to become the dominant Palestinian force in the West Bank. Meanwhile, Tawfiq Tirawi, a former Palestinian security chief, said that the people are brimming with anger and revolutionary spirit is on the high. There is unrest among the Palestinians, but it has mainly remained limited to the cities till now. The Israeli forces have tried to keep a lid on the unrest by arresting thousands. Palestinian officials say that Israeli government wants to depopulate the West Bank and its Palestinian residents. The IDF released some of the weapons found on Hamas terrorists on October 7th. 1,493 hand grenades and explosives, 760 RPGs, 427 explosive belts, 375 firearms, 106 rockets and missiles. These are just few of the weapons used to massacre over 1,400 Israeli civilians on that fateful day of October 7th. Now, these are the weapons that the IDF has captured from those who used against the settlements of the Israelis in southern Israel. And these weapons show the kind of firepower that the Hamas terrorists had when they entered the southern region of the country. In Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, Israelis marked 1 month since the attacks by the Hamas militants. They held demonstrations and candlelight vigils in memory of the victims and hostages. Many protesters in Jerusalem expressed frustration with the government's response to the traumatic events. In Tel Aviv, the people lit candles at a makeshift memorial. Meanwhile, John Kirby has in fact spoken about this particular aspect and said that the situation is something that the United States is trying to actively monitor. And he also underlined that the situation in Gaza should also be reflected. But he also said that the United States still remains with Israel and has a strong relationship with that country.
As you all saw yesterday, the president spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu, and he certainly discussed the need to continue to try to accelerate and increase the amount of humanitarian assistance that's going in. He also talked about the importance of pauses in the fighting to allow for aid to get in, people to get out, and for hostages to be released. We'll keep that dialogue going, obviously, with the Prime Minister and his war cabinet. On the idea of people getting out, so we do expect more individuals to depart Gaza today via the Rafah crossing. To date, there's been over 400 U.S. citizens and their families who have been able to depart and have been seeking the assistance of our consular team at the embassy in Cairo. And in just the last 24 hours, about 96, so just under 100 U.S. citizens and family members were able to move across that border. And as I said, it's very fluid. We won't get the final count until the end of the day today because the day is still going on. But we do expect that there'll be more Americans to come out today.
Well, the IDF paratroopers brigade operating in northern Gaza has uncovered an underground terror tunnel near an amusement park and another one near a university. Additionally, a weapon warehouse was also discovered near the university. This warehouse contained chemical materials, RPGs, claymore mines, and more. The tunnels were in fact used for facilitating what the IDF says, or rather hiding what the IDF says are Hamas weaponry, and also being used as exit and entry tunnels. And these tunnels have been a big headache for the IDF, and they have in fact gone ahead and targeted several of these tunnels. This particular tunnel being discovered next to an amusement park and one near the university. It is being said that the tunnel was used as a weapon warehouse and was discovered near the university, and the IDF soldiers are in fact going through some of those networks and sanitizing the area. The Hollywood Actors Union and major studios are still negotiating after 4 months of strikes. The union demands fair compensation in the streaming era and protections on AI use. Talks continue to resolve the issues, including concerns about actors' digital likenesses without permission. Have a look at this report.
Netflix on Monday told Reuters talks with striking Hollywood actors were ongoing after their union rejected the latest offering from the major studios. Netflix's co-chief executive, Ted Sarandos.
They're ongoing. We're at the table all day, every day, and we are trying to get this strike resolved and get the town back to work.
The Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, which represents Netflix, Walt Disney and other companies, presented what the studios called their last, best and final offer on Saturday. The SAG-AFTRA union on Monday said in a statement the two sides had yet to reach an agreement on several items, including the use of artificial intelligence. It added that it was determined to secure the right deal and bring a responsible end to a strike that has gone on for 4 months now. Hollywood actors walked off the job in July to demand higher compensation in the streaming TV era, as well as protections around the use of AI and other gains. Actors are seeking assurances that their digital likenesses will not be used without their permission.
Well, in London's Cottall Gallery, visitors wear special headsets to see how art affects their brains. The project by Art Fund shows that looking at beautiful or intriguing art make people feel happy.
Walking around, I've just been taking it in just like normal, and then seeing what it actually looks like on the screen is amazing. Really, really, really good.
I think we all know that there's something that happens when we look at something that is beautiful or something that's intriguing, but what this is showing is the pattern of your brain waves when you see something that intrigues or inspires or creates an emotion.
Nintendo raised its operating profit forecast for the financial year ending March by 11% to 500 billion yen, that is around $3.32 billion, as heavy-hitting franchisees continue to attract gamers to its aging Switch console. Take a look at this report.
Nintendo had good news for investors on Tuesday. The Japanese gaming giant raised its operating profit forecast for the financial year to March by 11%. Big-name games have proven so popular that Nintendo now projects it will make $3.32 billion in profit. Gamers have flocked to the aging Switch console this year. Nintendo sold 6.84 million units in the first half of the financial year, slightly up from last year. It's largely thanks to critically acclaimed games like The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. That heroic tale of Princess Zelda and the swordsman Link went on sale in May. Nintendo said it had sold 19.5 million copies as of the end of September, while another major title, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, launched last month. Nintendo's broad pop culture appeal was also helped by the success of a Super Mario movie. The game maker kept its full-year forecast for the Switch of 15 million units, though that would be a 16.5% decline on a year earlier.
Abortion will once again be on the ballot as Ohio residents vote on whether to guarantee abortion rights and Virginia voters decide whether to give Republicans the power to impose a new limit on the procedure. Take a look at this report.
With a yes vote on Issue 1, Ohio would enshrine abortion rights in the state's constitution. That is just one measure voters around the U.S. were considering on Tuesday. Supporters of abortion rights have won all 6 ballot initiatives contested in states around the country since the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade last year, eliminating a nationwide right to the procedure. Abortion is not on the ballot in Virginia, where every seat in the state legislature is up for grabs. But Democrats have sought to make it the top issue there, warning that a Republican victory would lead to a ban. Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin has said he will pursue a 15-week abortion limit if Republicans take control of the legislature, a move he has characterized as a reasonable compromise that could offer a blueprint for Republicans in 2024. Reuters reporter Joey Axe is covering the elections.
In particular, for the anti-abortion side, they've had a losing streak since the end of Roe, and I think in advancing a 15-week limit in Virginia and in portraying the Ohio amendment as too extreme, they're testing out messages that they would like to use in 24. When the presidential race is obviously on the ballot, when control of Congress is on the ballot, they want to see if those messages can at least defang the potency of abortion as an issue, so that the electorate can kind of focus on other issues that they feel are more advantageous to them.
In Kentucky, voters are considering whether to keep Democrat Andy Beshear as the state's governor. He is very popular, but the electorate is very Republican.
He's widely credited with helping to shepherd the state through the pandemic, through a series of really horrific natural disasters. The state economy has been pretty good. And so he's positioned about as well as you can be positioned as a Democratic governor in a deeply conservative state. He's running against Daniel Cameron, who's the state attorney general, and would be the first Black governor of Kentucky. And so most people expect that to be a pretty close race, but I think the odds seem to be favoring Beshear, at least based on the polling that we've seen.
In Mississippi, Republican incumbent Governor Tate Reeves is fighting off a challenge from a Democrat with a famous last name and fundraising prowess, Brandon Presley. The second cousin of Elvis is a former mayor who has raised more money than his opponent, but faces a tough fight in a state that voted for President Trump over Democratic President Joe Biden by more than 16 percentage points in 2020.
Well, the Russia-Ukraine war is having far-reaching impact on the Russian economy. In the latest, diamond traders in Belgium have been asked to boycott gems which have been brought in from Russia. Our next report tells you more.
Antwerp, Belgium, one of the largest diamond trading hubs in the world, has a Russia problem. It was only a few weeks after Russian troops invaded Ukraine last year when diamond firms in Antwerp started getting phone calls from international clients asking them to avoid using stones from Russia. That was no easy feat for diamond dealer Thierry Tugendhoff, who said about half of his rough diamonds used to come from Russia due to their high quality. But his company, T Diamonds, was forced to pivot and get its diamonds from somewhere else. Now, Western powers want to make the boycott official, with a formal ban on Russian stones. But Tugendhoff says the ban will only go so far.
China, which is a major consumer of diamonds, have absolutely no interest in that ban. India, which is also a major consumer of diamonds, they have no interest in that ban. I mean, they don't have no interest to know from where the stones are. It's never been the case. And most of Asia, there's no interest in that. They will buy and continue to buy Russian diamonds because they have no reason not to. It's available, the availability is there, and it's a little bit cheaper than non-Russian, so why would they stop?
Major Western jewelers, from Tiffany's to Cartier, have been keen to distance themselves from Russia's lucrative diamond trade. But a big hurdle with banning Russian diamonds from Western markets, which account for 70% of global diamond jewelry demand, is how to trace the origin of the stones. Small companies will struggle, says Tugendhoff.
We can do it because we've been working on traceability for the last 2 years. You should know that people who have been working with big brands, traceability is not something that comes out of the sky as of now. All the new the players in the industry who have not yet started with traceability are going to lag behind, for sure.
He said that not only would a full Western ban on Russian gems be costly for the industry, it could also take another year to fully implement.
Shipping and logistics giant Maersk is planning to cut 10,000 jobs as shipping demand is facing dip all across the globe. Our next report tells you more.
Maersk announced on Friday it would cut at least 10,000 jobs due to overcapacity, rising costs and weaker prices. It comes as the Danish shipping group reported a steep drop in third quarter profit and revenue. Maersk, which controls about 1/6 of the global container trade, flagged a steeper downturn in demand than expected and said it was in the process of cutting its workforce from 110,000 to below 100,000. Which will save the company $600 million next year. Shares in the group, whose raft of clients include major companies like Nike and Walmart, slid over 11% Friday morning to their lowest level in 3 years. Analysts said this was mainly because Maersk said it would reconsider whether to continue its share buyback program into 2024. The firm said it expects global container volumes in its ocean business, its largest, to fall by up to 2% this year. That's primarily as a result of weak consumer demand and also destocking by firms following an initial scramble for goods in the aftermath of the global health crisis. The company kept its full-year guidance for revenue and operating profit, but now expects both to land at the lower end of the range.
African trade ministers and US officials are meeting in Johannesburg, where there are calls for a duty-free trade deal to be extended by 10 years to reassure businesses and investors. Can US-Africa trade renewal be quickly sewn up? Let's take a look.
At a garment factory in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, the future of a US-Africa trade deal is on Nora Nasimiyu's mind. She's worked here stitching Levi's jeans, largely for US customers, for 13 years. It's how she's put 6 children through school and university. But she fears an uncertain future if the African Growth and Opportunity Act, or AGOA, is not renewed.
So we are praying that they extend. If they extend, it is going to be a very big advantage towards Kenyans at large.
AGOA provides qualifying African countries with duty-free access to the world's biggest consumer market. Nasimiyu's employer, Pankaj Bedi, chairman of United Aryan EPZ, said 99% of their garments go to the US.
Once AGOA is gone, all the buyers are gone, all the productions are gone. So similarly, if AGOA is not there, it would be not sustainable for us to survive here. So AGOA is supreme. So all 4 pillars of the business are based on AGOA only.
The program is due to expire in September 2025. But concern over its future is why African countries have been pushing for an early 10-year extension without changes. That's needed, they say, to reassure businesses and investors. Here's South African President Cyril Ramaphosa speaking at the summit on Friday.
United States and us, we're here for the long haul. So let us make AGOA a long-haul opportunity for all of us.
AGOA, which saw over $10 billion of African exports enter the US market duty-free last year, does enjoy long-standing bipartisan support from US lawmakers. They see it as critical in countering Chinese influence on the continent. However, there are divisions over the need for updates. A recent push in the Senate is aiming to pass a quick renewal deal. President Joe Biden has said he fully supports reauthorization. But his Secretary of State Antony Blinken said on Friday that Biden also wants to make it even better. African governments and US industry associations, however, worry that attempts to radically alter AGOA risk bogging it down in a Congress that is already struggling to pass even the most critical legislation.
The coastal village of Ostudun-Kirke is the last place in the world where the centuries-old tradition of horseback shrimp fishing is still practiced. The fishermen and women's proximity to the coastal waters has made them frontline witnesses of how climate change is altering the ecosystem of the North Sea.
On Belgium's far western coast, traditional horseback fishers are seeing firsthand how climate change is altering the ecosystem of the North Sea. Their report catching less shrimp, but more weaver fish and squid, traditionally found further south.
We have less shrimp catch than we used to, but we also have more weavers and animal species that you didn't see here before, which come from the Atlantic as the water warms up.
The coastal village of Ostudun-Kirke is the last place in the world where horseback shrimp fishing is still practiced. Fishermen like Gunther von Bleu ride horses through shallow waters. As the horse walks, the chain drags over the sand and creates vibration that causes the shrimp to jump into the net.
The best period to fish for shrimps used to be from September until December, when it starts to freeze. What we see now is that we get the best catches later in the season. I guess that there is a link with the climate change, because the water and the temperatures we live in have warmed up.
That rise in temperatures has disrupted traditional seasons for the small horseback fishing community. NASA says oceans have absorbed 90% of the global warming that humans have caused in the last few decades. In the North Sea, surface temperatures have increased by around 0.3 degrees Celsius every decade since 1991. And while shrimp populations fluctuate during short-term changes like heat waves, some species traditionally found further south have now moved north into Belgium's warming waters. Ilyas Emouri is a marine ecology researcher at Ghent University.
So for some species we see higher abundances. For example, the weavers and the squid, like cuttlefish, they have been found to increase with the warmer water temperatures. For shrimp, we also see this trend, but these coincide with heat waves that have been observed to take place in the North Sea.
Other species have fared worse. North Sea cod populations, for example, have plummeted since the 1980s, which scientists attribute to rising sea temperatures and overfishing.
For me, this is quite alarming, because at this rate, we see that a lot of species cannot cope and either migrate or go extinct. And if species go extinct, our food web will be impacted, which has consequences for us.
Well, that's all in this edition of the Bulletin. Stay tuned to Newsnight for further updates.